let's don't get lost in the jargon of voluntary and mandatory. They're basically synonymous. It's a voluntary right now, but the word is out that at least start making those preparations to leave town.
That's right. Let's check in with Carl Arredondo now in the Weather Center. Carl, what can you tell us about Katrina now?
Well, Katrina is still gaining strength out in the Gulf of Mexico. We're waiting for a new advisory with a new position and see if there's any change in strength and movement. That comes out at about 1 o'clock. But first, let's show you the hurricane warnings. Hurricane force conditions are expected within 24 hours from Morgan City over towards the Mississippi-Alabama state line. Now, as you look at the satellite photograph, we've seen more and more of the eye becoming more apparent there, and so that's an indication that this thing is gaining strength and probably on the verge of becoming a Category 4 hurricane as it continues to move on towards the west-northwest. Another vantage point, and you can kind of see the spiraling taking place. This thing is definitely getting better organized as we've seen hurricane development over the past several years. And, you know, in my time of watching hurricanes, this is definitely an organizing system getting better organized and strengthening as it continues to move towards the northwest. Now, as far as what we're talking about, as far as the upper level winds, we've seen the front starting to come down, the upper level trough coming down, and so why you see these fast winds up here and thunderstorm developing with the trough coming on in. So we're going to start to see some of these winds across northern Louisiana. If you look at the moisture flow there, you can kind of see part of it already from the southwest, indicating that trough is getting into Louisiana. So hopefully during the course of the morning and afternoon hours, we're going to start to see this sink a little farther south and take more of an influence now on the movement of Katrina as it gets closer towards the north central Gulf of Mexico. 424 miles from New Orleans, 25.0 north, 86.2 west, moving west-northwest at 7 miles per hour, and there's the pressure. Now the track continues to move it towards the northwest, west-northwest, and northwest, and you can see in this area the waters are very warm. As we told you before, for hurricanes to develop and continue to develop, you need water temperatures of 80 degrees or warmer. And this is plenty warm in the Gulf of Mexico in the mid-80s and even some 90s closer to the Louisiana coastline. So we'll continue to watch the National Hurricane Center's track, bring it at 125 miles sustained winds, miles per hour sustained winds at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then by the evening hours, 140 mile per hour sustained winds as it moves towards our coastline. Coming on shore about 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you can see 145 mile per hour sustained winds. Again, notice the margin of error, though, still in this area, so there could be some shift left or right from this hurricane coming on shore. But because it is such a strong hurricane and becoming such a large hurricane, there will be a big impact across a good part of Louisiana and Mississippi, not to mention the fact that tornadoes could accompany this landfalling tropical system. Here's the winds we're looking at, 7 o'clock in the morning. Very strong, intense hurricane force winds right around the center from near Grand Isle, from near lower Jefferson, lower Lafourche Parish, over towards Plaquemines Parish. Hurricane force winds start to move on inland into Louisiana, into the South Shore area. The yellow's tropical storm force winds. So you can see during the course of the morning hours, these tropical storm force winds on Monday, early morning hours, will spread on inland and then continue to overtake southeast Louisiana, south Mississippi, of winds of 40 miles per hour greater in the yellow. And then you can see the intense hurricane force winds in the darker shading there moving on inland. So that's going to track right across South Shore, North Shore, Lake Pontchartrain area, and that's going to cause a lot of damage to structures, not to mention the possibility of tornadoes with those sustained winds. So definitely the wind field is going to be right over our area if it takes this track. And this is the track similar to what the Hurricane Center is saying. What is bad for New Orleans, North Shore areas is that track with the strongest, most intense winds right to the right side of the track. And that's across, as you can see, lower Jefferson Parish, parts of Plaquemines Parish, Orleans, Upper Plaquemines, St. Bernard Parish, North Shore, St. Tammany, Washington Parish, and for parts of Tangipahoa Parish. So definitely we wouldn't want to see this track. This is one of the worst case scenarios. Now, better for us, worse for Mississippi if this track is shifted a little farther to the east. You're going to have the storm surge coming on in the eastern Mississippi coastline. Alabama will have northerly winds here and we're not going to see as much of a piling of the water. If this track again was over here, we'd have that piling of water coming across Barataria Bay, South Shore water heading towards the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. But this will push the water to the South Shore, so that would be worse across the South Shore, like we saw with Hurricane George along some of the camps along Lake Pontchartrain on the South Shore. Another bad scenario for parts of Plaquemines Parish, St. Bernard, Slidell, and Mississippi if this track is right over parts of metropolitan New Orleans. So there are different scenarios. It's going to be worse for some places than others, but still a large area of southeast Louisiana and Mississippi will be impacted. Now, as you look at the one of the computer models we look at, it'll continue to push it towards us by 7 o'clock in the morning Sunday. Squalls may already be pushing into our area with the winds, easterly flow piling that water into the lake from the Gulf of Mexico, and then 7 o'clock coming near Grand Isle, and then moving on inland after that. So mid to late morning hours moving towards metropolitan New Orleans by 1 in the afternoon, and then traveling more towards the north. Let's go to pinpoint Doppler radar. I want to check on that buoy out there near the center of Hurricane Katrina, and right now this is having winds of 66 miles per hour from the east, indicating that the center is still to the south. Waves of about 30, 31 feet. We've seen them a little bit higher. That's going to fluctuate a little bit. Water temperature 86 degrees at that buoy. The air temperature is 80 degrees at that area. A little closer to our area, you can see winds of 24 miles per hour and gusts to 26. So we are definitely seeing more in the way of those waters beginning to pile up across our area, and we're beginning to see some thunderstorm activity moving into the region. As you can see near Lower Plaquemines Parish, we have a couple of squalls getting ready to move into the vicinity, and that's going to be a little bit in the way of some thunderstorm activity there. The pinpoint storm path will show that in the next 30 minutes to an hour, that'll clip parts of Lower Plaquemines Parish. So Mike and Karen, that's what we're looking at, an intensifying hurricane. I'm going to go and get a few hours of sleep. Bill Capel's here. He'll cover you through the 3 o'clock hour. Then a former colleague of ours, Brad Panovich, is coming back from North Carolina to help us out a little bit. He'll cover from 4 o'clock on through 9 o'clock, and then I'll be back at 10 o'clock in the morning and continue to keep you updated throughout the Sunday morning. But again, we are seeing an intensifying hurricane. You still have time to make your preparations through the morning hours, because the weather won't really start to go downhill until we get towards the later part of the day. So we still have time to get things together, and as we've seen on the traffic cameras, still not that much traffic out there right now during the overnight hours. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have people beginning to take a warning and begin to make their preparations and leave if they possibly are going to leave this area.
A couple of questions, Carl, before we let you go to sleep. Okay. As we look to the threat of tornadoes and preceding this storm, when might we likely see tornado watches posted for our area?
Well, probably if landfall around Jefferson Parish is going to be around 7 o'clock in the morning, I would say sometime before 7 a watch will be issued, because even if the landfall is at 7 o'clock, the outer bands will be there much sooner. So overnight Sunday, there may definitely be a tornado watch issued for the area. That would include beginning early Monday morning, because as the outer bands get close to us, any one of those could produce a tornado. And we've seen that many times with landfalling tropical storms or hurricanes. So more than likely, overnight Sunday night, we'll have a tornado watch issued, and that'll cover a good part of the morning hours, probably through early afternoon across southeast Louisiana.
Carl, I'm sure there are people all over the metro area going to bed tonight hoping and praying that this storm will take a last-minute jog to the east and leave us on the western side of the storm. What exactly are we hoping for? A trough, a high? What would pull it east?
Well, we're hoping for this trough to come down much sooner and the winds be a little bit stronger to push it away sooner and faster. Right now, as I showed you a little while ago, the upper level winds are southwesterly over northern Louisiana. So it's not that far. So maybe another 6 hours or so, maybe 10 hours, we're going to start to see those upper level winds get down across southeast Louisiana. So at the farther south they go, and at the farther north the hurricane goes, we'll start to see it influence a little bit more. But we probably have a little bit longer before we start to see that become a bigger factor in the track of Katrina, maybe in another 6 hours or so. So probably as we head towards 6 o'clock in the morning, hopefully we see those upper level winds farther south and maybe giving Katrina more of a nudge towards the northwest and eventually north and northeast.
Let's take a look now at the traffic situation. We have cameras getting live pictures across the area. That is the area on the I-10 near the Cleary exit, I believe.
Yes.
And the left lane, again, is starting to back up. It looks like a lot of people heeded the mayor's advice, at least those who are choosing to go towards Baton Rouge.
Exactly, or they were ready to go and decided that, because around 6 and 7 and 8 o'clock, boy, I mean, you could have driven through here with hardly stopping, and maybe they saw that certainly and said, now it's not a bad time to go. Let's go ahead and make our move. And you hope, it's been a long day for a lot of people. I know, many people didn't sleep well last night watching this thing. You're up early. You're up trying to get your house prepared. You're up trying to take care of your house, to pack your car, to get your family together, to make reservations, to head out in any direction that you can. And so if you're out there watching and you are making preparations to leave, it's been a long day. It's going to be a long night. Prepare yourself. I don't want people being tired on the road. Take some coffee because, you're tired already. You're emotionally stressed.
But the traffic is moving.
Yeah, it is moving.
It might be the time to leave. Maybe stock up on the coffee and the caffeine. And certainly those lanes going, the right lanes are moving at a great clip and really very little delays. They're not going quickly, but they're certainly they don't seem to be impacted by any delays. And we heard from Dr. Walter Maestri of Jefferson Parish. He was saying, go north, just get out of harm's way. And certainly those are sentiments that were echoed by the state earlier. They sent out a press release.
Get out of the flood area. As we take a look at the Crescent City connection, no problems there with traffic whatsoever. Those that are coming over to the East Bank will eventually hit it when they run in, if they're going left or in the left-hand lanes of around the Cleary area. But at this point, smooth sailing.
And a lot of the reason is for that is because they have lifted the tolls. All these are lessons that we learned in prior storms, or almost the near misses, and we've learned a lot. And so now we've implemented some changes. They had lifted those tolls. I was on the west. I was just going to say I was on the West Bank at around 10 o'clock this morning, and really just sailed right through. So that's been something that they have implemented all day long. And the final look now. Let's take a look at the I-10 Carrollton overchange. So. Traffic seems to be moving.
And there are a lot. I'm somewhat surprised that there are this many people at 12:30 that are leaving, because I'm kind of curious as to where they're going. You know what I mean? Do they have hotel rooms somewhere, or they just feel like now's the time to go because they're concerned with what they might face tomorrow morning? And
you are very familiar with the Contraflow plan. You've done a long report on it, and there is a certain amount of importance placed on the preparation. You can't just get into your car and say, I'm just going to get out of harm's way. You really have to have a plan as to which direction you want to head. If you don't, you're going to go to Baton Rouge through Biloxi, because if you don't, because the state police are quite adamant in not letting you, if you get into the wrong lane, it's not something that you can fix down the road away. So just the maps are on the internet. If you have some, just go onto Google, Google Louisiana State Police. You can get the maps. You can it'll tell you where the contraflow is going. So there's still time to do it. But I think it was lsp.org even, if I remember that. And you might, if we can, pull up that phone number too, if we get a moment in a minute. But there are a lot of people have questions about the Contraflow plan. They're still trying to figure out exactly how to get from one point to another. The state police has implemented a phone number, a hotline where people can call and say, hey, help me out. And we will get that number to you. There you go. That's for questions. If you've got some Contraflow questions, but again, this number was put out by the Louisiana State Police because they felt there were some concerns out there from the public that maybe some misinformation got out that the police or that parish officials didn't want people heading northbound, that they didn't want them utilizing the Contraflow system northbound, I-55, I-59. For whatever reasons, we talked to Dr. Walter Maestri, they are being underutilized. People may feel that they certainly don't want to go into an area where the storm may affect them. And so that could have played a role into that. And so, thank you. I'm listening to Todd Bauer in my ear. We're going to go now to Mr. Lambert with the Department of Transportation. Mr. Lambert, you've joined us not too long ago. The roadways are actually probably more crowded than they were when we most recently talked to you.
No, I'm sorry, you're saying they're more crowded?
Yeah, at least from our vantage point. I can't speak to the secondary roadways. I can only speak to what we've been looking at with the cameras at the Causeway, looking west and Cleary, and with the Contraflow heading west on I-10.
Okay. Well, this may sound strange, but obviously we think that's a good sign. We hope people are utilizing the roadways. Our concern, let's say, the last several hours is that not enough people were leaving. Actually, I think it's encouraging if we're seeing a buildup of traffic, because it's an indication that people are taking it seriously. I think it's an indication people are taking the mayor's warning to heart and getting out of town, and we think that's encouraging.
Welcome back to our continuing Hurricane Katrina coverage. We are about 10 minutes away from 1 o'clock in the morning. Want to remind you, if you're out there packing at home and you want to throw your laptop in, please do so, because we are streaming all of our wall-to-wall coverage of Hurricane Katrina coverage on our website, WWL-TV.com. So wherever you go, if you've got internet capabilities, you'll be able to find out what's going on in New Orleans and what's the latest of the storm damage, who got affected the most, and so certainly take it along with you. Now,
I don't know how to do it, but I think cell phones. I think a lot of cell phones you can access the web on there too, so another option. But WWLTV.com. We are now joined by phone with Larry Ingargiola in St. Bernard Parish. He's with the Emergency Operations Center. Thank you for being with us this very early morning. Tell us about your concerns in St. Bernard.
My concern is getting the people out right now.
And of your population, about what percentage has left, and what's going on with the remaining? We got about
40-45% of the people that has left during the day today. We're hoping to get maybe another 40% out tomorrow. Our biggest fear is that the majority of the people haven't experienced a major hurricane yet.
Have you kind of seen it increase, a pretty steady increase through the night, or did you see a big push during the day? That 40% left. Now we're hoping for another 40%. Or as we've kind of seen on the I-10 westbound, and Mayor Nagin talked about that, now is still a good time to go. Are people still going, do you think?
Yeah, we see a lot of people still on the highway right now, not as much as it was at 4, 5, 6 o'clock early this evening. But there's still a lot of people out there.
And why do you think the hesitancy? Is it that, as you said, maybe they haven't weathered Betsy or Camille? Is that the reason, or are they just a lot of diehards who just don't want to leave their property or their homes?
I don't think we have that many diehards. I think the last couple of storms that we had where we called for an evacuation, they think it may have been just a drill. Right now, this is one of the worst storms that we're going to see probably hopefully in our lifetime.
Back on the telephone is Dr. Walter Maestri, the Jefferson Parish Emergency Operations Center. Dr. Maestri, how are things now, and are we still kind of in that wait mode until tomorrow morning's conference call?
Correct. It's relatively quiet right now. As Mr. Roussel just said, this would be a very, very good time for anyone who is seriously considering evacuation and wants to have very little problems with the traffic to attempt to move out. And we are continuing to encourage everyone to move out. The latest bulletin has just come out, and it's now confirmed that Katrina is a Category 4 hurricane, and that's just nothing that any of us want to play with, especially on the track that's forecast.
145 miles an hour. That's what Andrew was when it hit South Florida.
Absolutely, and we anticipate that wherever this goes, it can cause that kind of damage, and that's what's got us all, so greatly concerned, particularly that right now it appears in the crosshairs.
Are there certain areas of Jefferson Parish that you're most concerned with right now?
Well, it's going to depend, Mike, specifically on the track, as it comes in. All areas in the metro area, everywhere in metropolitan New Orleans is going to be significantly impacted and is at risk. There are areas, of course, that are more problematic. Some areas on the West Bank here in Jefferson Parish or more susceptible to tidal surge flooding than are others. We're very, very concerned about the area east of the Harvey Canal. We are building that sector gate on the canal to shut it off, to shut off the inflow of water.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Katrina, and we have a weather update.
Weather update. Bill Capo joins us now from the Weather Center. What can you tell us about the latest of Katrina, Bill?
Well, it's not good news. More bad news keeps coming in. Let's take a look. We have the 1 o'clock position. This is where Katrina is as of an hour ago. This is the position fixed by the hurricane hunters. at 25.1 north, 86.8 west. But what they noticed was a period of explosive growth. If you remember, the 10 o'clock wind speed was 115 miles per hour, now 145 miles per hour. That makes it a Category 4 hurricane. Still moving towards the west-northwest at 8 miles per hour. The barometric pressure the hurricane hunters found has continued to drop. This morning it was 27.76. It's now down to 27.61. And when it's dropping like that, it means that the hurricane is continuing to grow.
We have an interview on the phone with Reuben Berry, Louisiana State Trooper. And Trooper Berry, what can you tell us about traffic conditions right now?
Right now, we don't have any breakdowns or accidents to report. However, we're stressing that anybody that can leave, please do so now while the traffic is light. Our volume of calls have picked up, and mostly it's people asking for directions on where to go, and they really need to plan where they're going, and if they have a map, to look at the flow of traffic on the Contra side so they can know if they stay in the left lanes leaving from Metairie, to get into the left lane if they're going toward Baton Rouge, and to stay in the right lanes if they plan to go toward Hammond area. The Baton Rouge, we've been in constant contact with our Baton Rouge EOC, and everything's clear in Baton Rouge.
Now we're getting to that time. For us, we've been one continuous time, but for people who have been home and got their house ready 9, 10 o'clock, been to bed, and I think we're going to have a whole people waking up now as we've had a constant flow of traffic heading out, but I think we're going to have a whole new bunch of people getting ready, getting up early, and getting out on the road.
And at various points in time, I think people look at the weather forecast to see where this storm is going, to see if it's really going to be coming here. And I think it's pretty evident at this point that there's not much wiggle room. I mean, it looks like it's going to hit part of our area pretty strongly. And so I think you're right. I mean, I think people are looking to see if now's the time to leave or not. And actually, now would be a good time to go, because later in the day, after dawn, when day breaks, traffic's really going to pick up, I would imagine.
That's what they were talking about yesterday, and you certainly couldn't blame them. It was Saturday, morning at 10 o'clock. The storm was expected to get here on Monday. A great number of people decided to heed the advice of the parish officials and leave. A lot of other people just said, I think I'm going to go, and we've made preparations to go, but we're just not leaving just yet. The storm was still hundreds, several hundred miles out, and so the preparations were made, and that was the key. As long as you've made preparations, because the roadways now, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and in the next 3-4 hours, we'll have to wait and see what kind of, if there is kind of a rush. Right. People waking up at 4:35 to get on the road to see how things change in the coming hours, because you certainly hope not, because that's what the state police have talked about all along. They just don't want to see any kind of situation where it's an Ivan situation, where these cars are on the roadways in a gridlock situation, wall to wall, back to back, start to overheat, and then that just slows up traffic.
We only had bad congestion for about an hour or so this afternoon. Otherwise, actually, the Contraflow system seems to be working fairly well.
Right.
I mean, traffic is moving. There is that delay getting into the Contraflow lane headed out I-10 West, but otherwise, everything seems to be moving very well.
Right. I mean, it was when you looked at it earlier this afternoon, at 4 o'clock is when we began the Contraflow. It looked like a normal Friday afternoon rush hour, and then it took a while once they opened the Contraflow to get everybody into the mode of, okay, shift to the left and get all those cars that were going to do it. And they also had to stop the traffic, up on the other side. So it's, I think, and then we went through a lull there for a while, actually, where it wasn't this thick. But certainly after the nighttime hours, people have gotten back on the road.
Now, Mayor Nagin has been in. You interviewed Mayor Nagin, and he was saying that he's very concerned. He talked to the National Hurricane Center, and they told him that this is the monster that New Orleans has been hoping would never come our way.
Right, and if you're sitting there, and he was sitting there hoping for some type of magical turn, he just didn't think it was going to happen for several reasons. But one is that the size of the storm, it's not going to turn, and no matter what, we're going to be affected just by the mere size of the storm. Southeast Louisiana is not going to avoid some type of impact from a Category 4, which is 145 right now, with the possibility to get to a Category 5. You talked to Max Mayfield with the National Hurricane Center, who, I think he said, look, he was scared for New Orleans.
He talked about wind gusts of 170 miles an hour, 25-foot storm surge going over the levee. The mayor said he's going to look at the possibility of a mandatory evacuation in the morning.
Right, and that's one of the things we talked about with Mayor Nagin and also Dr. Walter Maestri in that. And Karen asked him, well, we make a significant deal of voluntary evacuation, mandatory evacuation, and they say vernacular, there's really no difference. Mayor Nagin would have called for a mandatory evacuation at 10:15 tonight, could he? But there are hospitals involved, there are hotels involved. He didn't have the wherewithal, from what he said, to be able to do that, to be able to legally call for that. But he said there's no difference.
Right, and even where they do call for a mandatory evacuation, they don't really have the means to go in and pull people out and make them get out of there. So
you certainly hope that people heed the advice, because where there are mandatory evacuations right now are areas south of levees, are areas in Houma and Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes.
St. Tammany below I-12.
Yeah, St. Tammany below I-12, where and those people have lived in these areas for years and years and years. They know when their areas are going to flood. Those are the areas that they need the most time to get out.
All right, we're going to pitch to a break, and we'll be back with our continuing coverage of Hurricane Katrina in just a moment.
We watched through the late afternoon hours with the end of Contraflow as they made their way traffic out through New Orleans East and over to the North Shore, and that's where Mike Ross has been throughout the day and brings us the latest now from the North Shore.
We've been driving up and down the streets of Mandeville this evening, and it appears that most people are taking the evacuation order to heart. Highway 190 North, which earlier today was jammed with evacuees, is now nearly empty. And all up and down Lakeshore Drive, businesses and homes are boarded up and vacant. But among the few people still here, there's a sense of disbelief that the storm is really coming.
Well, it's pretty desperate now. You know, the storm's kind of snuck up on everybody, and we really weren't expecting this. And this is a friend of mine's house. We're just trying to get his valuables out before the flood comes, because he's not a quarter of a mile from Lake Pontchartrain. And you listen to the news reports, and this is probably going to have 15 feet of water under it. So trying to help him out.
It's a pretty rough situation for this town. Huh?
It's very rough, and I think it just snuck up on everybody. I don't think people are really ready for what's coming to us, and people aren't aware of what a Category 5 storm can do. And I'm not young enough to remember whatever Camille Betts, who was in '64, and it's just, you know, things are desperate around here. He's afraid, you know, he's going to come back and have nothing.
I'm going to tell you, we're really pleased. I think that through the efforts of the news stations, I think the word got out that we were serious about what we were talking about. And I'm going to tell you that I think about 85% of the residents of Mandeville have left. And we're seeing that parish-wide. So people are taking the storm seriously. They're looking at it and saying, this is an event that we don't need to be around. And we're proud of that, because they heeded the advice.
Now, the level of the lake here along the Mandeville lakefront continues to rise slowly, and that's one of the big concerns here on the North Shore tonight. How big will the storm surge get? And officials from Mandeville and Madisonville all the way to Slidell are warning that the few people who choose to stay in their homes tonight may be on their own later. When the winds and the tides get too strong and too high, emergency officials may not be able to reach you if you get in trouble. We'll continue to bring you updates from the North Shore throughout the evening. Reporting from the North Shore, I'm Mike Ross, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
And it could be a scary night for folks in their homes.
It probably wasn't too long ago that Mike shot that situation. The lake looked unbelievable. I mean, it looked like a beautiful, serene night there. I mean, wow, you know things are going to change abruptly there in the coming minutes and hours.
Well, we have Senator David Vitter on the phone with us. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Sure, Dennis.
You have to be concerned about this storm moving in. What are your thoughts tonight?
Absolutely. This seems like a horrific storm, so we're all bracing for it clearly. Like a lot of folks, I got my family evacuated there with some other family in Memphis, and now I'm in Baton Rouge. I'll be at the State Police Command Headquarters. I've been focused on the federal angle and making sure all the appropriate federal agencies led by FEMA are completely prepared for the recovery. And I think the good news is there that they are. The president gets it. He's very personally focused on this. FEMA knows that this is a massive threat. The FEMA director is in Louisiana on the ground. Large FEMA teams are already pre-positioned on the ground in Louisiana. So I think we've done everything we can in that regard.
How, when you look at what just happened with the energy bill and so many bright things that Louisiana was thinking about as far as restoring its coastline, when you look at it from that vantage point, how detrimental do you possibly think Katrina could be to what Louisiana was thinking about in its future wetlands restoration?
Well, you know, this is the sort of scenario that can drive the point home more tragically and more vividly than any debate on the floor of the U.S. Senate. and I wish it wouldn't come to this, but it may drive that point home.
You're saying that because obviously while Louisiana did fairly well in the recent energy bill, I think we were initially looking for $14 billion. There was so much more that we really needed to get the job done right.
And we're still looking for that, and we absolutely need that over time.
And Senator, another aspect of this is the economic aspect, because as a result of this, the economy will suffer.
Absolutely. This is going to be a massive recovery effort, probably the greatest in U.S. history in terms of storms. And our economy in the greater New Orleans area will almost certainly be shut down for a while.
I'm talking about the oil industry, though. The rigs and oil prices are up, and rigs could be damaged.
We're going to track very closely what impact this has on oil and gas supply and also prices, and we're already looking at some federal policy options to try to provide some relief there.
Starting to see that camera getting bounced around a little bit.
Amazing shots, though, I'll tell you.
That is certainly what we all wanted to see, which is a bunch of empty streets. And I know the respective sheriffs and police departments who had these 6 o'clock curfews, Jefferson, Lafourche, pretty much all over, 6 o'clock, don't be on the streets unless you're evacuating. That's what they wanted to see as well.
Yeah, so things are going as the officials want at this point. And Carl, how's the storm looking?
Well, so far we're seeing that north-northwest track is still continuing. When we get the new advisory at 10 o'clock, we're going to see if that continues to be the case. And remember, it's not expected really to make that turn according to the latest Hurricane Center's track until it gets closer to Grand Isle. If it does do it sooner, that would be better, because we want it to turn before it reaches 90 degrees. So that way it will not impact us as much as it would if it doesn't make that turn until 90 degrees. Then we're going to have more of a direct impact. So either way, we're going to have an impact, just a matter of how direct will it be. So we're watching that in the satellite radars, as you mentioned, very impressive. We're starting to see the eye getting closer. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of now watching and just seeing where this thing's going to go. Let's first show you a recap of the watches that are still in effect. The flood watch will continue. We've already had almost 4.5 inches of rainfall around Grand Isle, when that's only with some of the outer feeder bands coming on in. So we're still going to see a whole lot of rain coming on into the area. A tornado watch continues. So far we've had no tornado warnings. We had a couple of little shear markers come across the coastal parishes of Plaquemines and Jefferson Parish, but have no warnings issued for those. This is until 2 o'clock, but more than likely extended past that time frame. Now, as you take a peek and show you the satellite photograph, again, you can see this very well-defined eye getting closer and closer to southeast Louisiana. So we haven't seen something like this in quite some time. As you've heard us say many times before, the last major hurricane to affect metropolitan New Orleans, Betsy, in 1965. So the 40-year anniversary of Betsy, we're dealing with a Category 5 hurricane just on our doorstep. And the infrared satellite, you can see that very well-defined eye here. This continued to develop during the course of the afternoon and increased as high as 175 mile-per-hour winds with a pressure as low as 902 millibars, lower than Camille. So we're looking at a hurricane that's lower than Camille, stronger than Camille pressure-wise, and that's what we really rank hurricanes by, the pressure and not necessarily the wind speed, even though the wind speed was up at 175, gust to 215. 160 miles per hour has come down, 15 mile per hour sustained winds from earlier, still a Category 5 hurricane. Recall, a Category 5 hurricane is 156 miles per hour and greater, so barely a Category 5 hurricane. North-northwest at 11 miles per hour, and that pressure leveling off right now at 904 millibars. 27.2 north, 89.1 west. We go through the track scenarios again. This is basically what we're looking at. Worst track for Plaquemines, St. Bernard, Slidell, Mississippi, and parts of metropolitan New Orleans, because the eye will be traveling right over New Orleans and St. Tammany Parish with that surge coming on in. Lower Plaquemines, Barataria Bay, heading up Barataria Bay as well, and across coastal Mississippi. You will have the northerly winds on the backside of Lake Pontchartrain pushing that water to the south shore. The river is expected to be rising, as I mentioned before, a river level of 3.5 feet today at the Carrollton gauge in New Orleans. The forecast for tomorrow at 7 a.m., 17 feet. That is flood stage at the Carrollton gauge, 17 feet, but the levees there protect the city up to 22 feet. So we are looking at the river water going up. We have to see if there's enough of a surge coming on in, plus the rain, to see what happens with our levee system. So this is definitely a big test for our levee system. And this track scenario, if it does shift a little to the left, you're going to see still a worse scenario for New Orleans and the North Shore, because the core of the eye wall on the right side will be traveling right over the city and up towards parts of the North Shore area. You will still have an eye wall problem around Tangipahoa Parish, St. James, St. John, down towards Terrebonne Parish. So a little shift in this still has a major impact across much of southeast Louisiana. It's just a matter of who's going to get the worst of the terrible winds that are going to be coming on across southeast Louisiana. Looking at some of the wind speeds right now, these are sustained winds. 26 miles per hour sustained at Armstrong International, 17 around Gulfport, and the gust up to 40 now at Armstrong International, indication why those cameras are shaking quite a bit out there. Now we're going to deal with the rain and the thunderstorms and the squall, so I'm going to turn it over to Brad Panovich in the Weather Center.
Yeah, Carl, we're really starting to see those winds pick up now that we're seeing these squalls and these rain bands move through the area. Conditions, probably in the last 20 minutes, we've seen winds go from about 20 sustained now up to 40. That's tropical storm force winds now that for an extended period of time. I think we're pretty much socked in now with those strong winds. Let's go to pinpoint Doppler radar, show you where the storms are right now. And we have some bands of heavier rain beginning to move back into the area. Just a side note, that box you see right there, that is actually the tornado watch, which is in effect till 2 o'clock in the morning. And because of the tornado watch, I'm going to keep a particular eye on these individual storms. These is where you get little spin-ups on the tips of these little storms as they rotate in from the east to the west, and we'll put this into motion. You can see the movement as these rain bands wrap into the region. Right now in the CBD, we're not seeing a lot of rain, few passing showers, but the winds are picking up, as Carl had mentioned. We'll head downriver through Plaquemines Parish, Myrtle Grove, some heavy rain, Point of Lahash down towards Port Sulphur. And these areas down here are seeing winds close to 60 and 70 miles per hour already across this area to kind of give you an indication of how strong those winds actually are. Let's throw some of those winds up there for you. We're going to put what we call wind barbs on there, and I'll move this out real quickly and give you an idea. You can see the flow. We can actually tell that the center is right down in this region here. So it's moving to the north-northwest at about 11 miles per hour. We have very strong wind field here moving in across this region. So that's beginning to push the water. Everywhere you see these little barbs going like that, that's pushing water into eastern St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish. And again, that water is going to come in through Lake Bourne into Lake Pontchartrain, and we're going to see that extremely heavy rain move into the region. I want to show you the 1 hour rainfall totals just to give you an idea of how much rain. Look at these totals down here closer to the eye wall. We're talking inch, 2 inches, 3 inches per hour. This is not over a couple hours. This is just in 1 hour, and we get several hours of this rainfall. You kind of get an idea of how much rain could fall. These are storm totals that we're showing you right now based on Doppler radar. Down near Venice, we have about 6 inches of rain has fallen. Down near Grand Isle, 4 inches plus, but of course out here in the Gulf, a couple of these green areas, you're looking at rainfall totals approaching 8 inches.
Let's check in on the Gulf Coast, as the storm is going to have an impact on the Gulf Coast as well. And in Gulfport is our Ben Lemoyne. Ben?
Dennis, this is the hour they knew was coming. A curfew is now in place in Harrison County, 9 o'clock. They don't want anybody to go anywhere anymore. That's what they're telling us. Those who are in place right now, they want them to stay there. That's a pretty good thing. Last report we had from a couple of hours ago, just going from right here in Harrison County to try to make it to Mobile on I-10, typically, I guess, about an hour ride. That was about 3 to 4 hours. Now, joining me right now is the director of the Emergency Operations Center, Colonel Spraggins. Tell us a little bit. You have an interesting perspective. You used to be commander in the National Guard. Now you're in charge of emergency operations. Where do we stand right now?
Well, we're in a situation right now, as you said, we just went to a 9 p.m. curfew. The curfew is for anybody, just to get out to do anything. We do not want that to happen. If you have to go to a shelter, we don't mind that. We understand that. Go to the shelter, we'll let you do that. If you have to if you're still trying to evacuate, we will try to let you do that if that's what you'd like to do. There are a couple of shelters that we're about to shut down. They're over in Wolf River area, and we got a real concern with that. And so we're going to have to move those people to another shelter safer. And so we're about to do that now. But it's a very serious situation over within the Wolf River area, and it's because of the floodplain. And you know, we have never, the highest it's ever been is around 18 feet. We're expecting 16 feet 3 inches by tomorrow morning at about daybreak, and up to as 23 feet by about 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Still lines at the Superdome, people trying to get inside, although they tell me now the lines have pretty much gone down to 0 right now. But within the last hour, still several hundred people lined up trying to get inside the Superdome. We were told by some people waiting in line they'd been sitting there for over 4 hours trying to get inside. There is security procedures for people to make sure that no one goes in with contraband or any kind of weapon, so they are screening people as they went through. And it was kind of interesting because we heard the National Guard soldiers, the troopsmen, walk up and down the aisle calling for women and children. They were bringing the women and children inside the Superdome first. They told me they did that because they wanted to get them out of the elements. It is kind of drizzling there. They want to get them inside as soon as possible. Estimates show that there's about 15,000 people inside the Superdome right now. Now, earlier today they had warned there was not enough supplies for evacuees from what I understand, but the National Guard came in and brought in food and water for the people at the Superdome. So there are now over 360,000 MREs for people inside the shelter.
So people weren't bringing the things that they asked them to bring?
Well, I think people were bringing what they could, but the Superdome and the Director of Health felt more comfortable if maybe there was actually some supplies there for people to eat and drink. And so the National Guard came in, brought bottled water, brought these meals ready to eat for people over 300,000.
The Army meals that people you've heard so much about.
Exactly. So over 300,000 for them. They feel like that's enough to keep them at least settled for the next couple of days.
Sure.
They definitely say will not be comfortable. They are expecting to lose power and to lose running water, but it's still, they say, better than nothing considering the circumstances.
Now, did you said the security checkpoints, they're looking for contraband, drugs, alcohol, and weapons. You see any of that?
I didn't see any of that personally. They have this box at the front of the Superdome where people can drop in things kind of anonymously in case they're carrying something they shouldn't be carrying. And we saw people indeed using the box. I couldn't tell exactly what they were dropping inside, but probably wasn't allowed in the Superdome. And the security there is pretty tight. The National Guard is screening people with metal detectors, trying to make sure that things remain peaceful inside the Superdome.
You talk to some people. What's kind of the mood over there?
We did talk to some people. A lot of people were a little frustrated, of course, by the long wait. Others were not, said it's expected. A lot of nervous people, of course, saying that they wanted to get somewhere safe. They didn't have a car. They didn't have a way to get out of town. They know it's the shelter of last resort, but for them it was pretty much their first choice. And so we have on tape, actually, an interview I had with this one woman who is originally from Houston, now lives in Gretna, I believe, and she was considering staying at home, but her mother called and saw the news in Houston and Texas and kind of pushed her to move to the Superdome, and so that's what she did. We can hear from her right now, hopefully. How long have you been waiting out here?
I've been out here for 3 hours.
Are you serious? 3 hours?
3 hours, and we're soaking wet.
What do you think about this?
It's horrible.
Why do you say that?
Because all these families in need, and then here we out here waiting all this time getting soaking wet. That's bad.
Why did you decide to come out here?
Because we had no other way. I was in a car accident. My car is ruined, so this is the only best way I can get into a shelter. My house was too deep in waterways, so that's why.
Welcome back. Mike Austin, Dennis Woltering, 9:45 on this Sunday as we await the arrival of Hurricane Katrina here in our New Orleans headquarters.
Yes, we're in the French Quarter, and we can only stay here until it becomes dangerous, or until shortly before it becomes dangerous, and then our operations will move. We have crews in Baton Rouge at LSU, and they will take over the broadcasting, our coverage of Katrina, and our coverage will continue to be nonstop through this storm.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Provide continuous support for people who are out there and all across the southeast United States watching to just keep them up to date with what's going on.
And leading the crew in Baton Rouge, Sally Ann Roberts and Eric Paulson. Eric?
Thank you very much, Dennis and Mike. We are here in Baton Rouge on the LSU campus at Hodges Hall in the Manship School of Mass Communication. We have a number of LSU students helping us out here.
Fine students here.
And I'll tell you what, the mood in Baton Rouge when I got up here is so much different than what's happening down in New Orleans. You were able to go out. I was able to walk over to a hamburger place and get something to eat. People are out and about. Business is going on pretty much as usual here, although the Interstate 10 is loaded with people in Baton Rouge.
And I want to say thank you to that kind couple in the tan SUV who let me in traffic. It's really those small things that you will appreciate. One thing I noticed, and it was the strangest thing, when we were passing by the Colonial Golf Course and all those tall pine trees, yes, and all those tall pine trees, something was missing. No birds. I saw no birds, no squirrels. And I imagine that before we had all the technology that, Bill, you have access to, that's how people were able to tell when things were happening.
And let me tell you what, I got an email from Dr. Brobson Lutz tonight, and one of his friends observed that the only ducks that were left in the park he was at, all the wild ones were gone. Because they knew something was going on. The only ones that were there were the ones that could not fly.
Yes, and something is going on, and it's something we never thought we would see, not in our lifetime, but it is something that appears to, we seem to still be in the crosshairs.
Oh, in fact, the Weather Service is saying that people and animals outdoors in the southeast Louisiana area tonight, their lives literally could be at risk. So those ducks, the ones that can't fly, are
and of course, a lot of folks migrated up here to get away from the storm. But Baton Rouge is battening down the hatches because they're expecting pretty heavy winds here too from this hurricane.
It's very interesting because local media were advising residents of Baton Rouge to stay away from the interstate area to allow the people evacuating from New Orleans. Tens of thousands who either are going through this area and many of them are staying in this area, including, I'm told, some of the special needs patients are being brought to Baton Rouge. And Baton Rouge is not out of the woods by any means. There's a chance, although right now at 9 o'clock, the storm is 240 miles southeast of Baton Rouge at this point, the center of Katrina.
But when we see it on the radar,
it's massive.
It's just so massive, and it's so awe-inspiring to know that it's headed our way.
Yes,
it's unbelievable.
And it's possibly the most scary thing. We're already in Baton Rouge. There have been some scattered rain showers, a couple of them quite heavy, really outer band type rainfall. The wind's only about 15 miles per hour right now, gusting to about 25, but at any point from now on, storm force winds could start in Baton Rouge and last 22 to 26 hours in Baton Rouge, and the possibility of hurricane force winds could happen in Baton Rouge sometime after dawn and last a good 5 to 10 hours. At that point, maximum, let me just tell you, the maximum wind gust could be 80 to 90 miles per hour here in Baton Rouge.
And they're expecting some power outages, things like that. On the way up, I don't know if you noticed, Bill, we saw in around Hammond, I mean, dozens and dozens of power trucks and those cherry
That's one of their
trucks.
staging areas.
That's one of their staging areas getting ready.
They pull them north of I-12 to get them out of the worst effects of the storm and above the area where it could flood and destroy the trucks. I'm not sure whether Hammond, with a storm on the track that Katrina is, might not be quite far enough. They've got them parked in a shopping center parking lot, so I'm just hoping that flying debris doesn't do a lot of damage to some of those trucks.
Because there's going to be so much work for those guys.
Yeah. On my way to Baton Rouge, I ran into several bands, I mean, sheets of rain coming across. And I thought, is this it?
And you went on a different route than we went on.
Yes, I went Claiborne to Jefferson Highway to River Road to Apple Street to Airline to 30th to the Highway 30. And it was, sometimes it was 55 miles an hour, and other times it was stop and go. It took me 7 hours.
But that's the good news, because people were taking this storm seriously in the New Orleans area, and that was the thing that people had to do, because it is such a powerful storm. We were hearing that the mayor was saying at 6 o'clock that there are about 30,000 people in the Superdome. That's the shelter of last resort, and it's much better for them to be there than in their homes, because the chance of damage to even well-constructed homes is significant with a storm that could come in at 160 miles per hour, sustained winds with much higher gusts than that.
We're talking about the nation is going to be impacted by this.
The official Hurricane Center term for a Category 5 is a catastrophic hurricane, and this truly fits the bill.
All right, we're going to throw it back to New Orleans and our colleagues there. Carl Arredondo has some new information about this hurricane. Carl?
Yeah, it does look like the new track is in, and they do keep it pretty much on course. There's been a little bit of change in the forward speed. It's down to 10 miles per hour. So let's show you the satellite photograph, and we'll get to it. You can see the satellite showing that very well-defined eye. It hasn't weakened very much at all, so we're still seeing a very intense hurricane coming at us from the south-southeast. Still moving towards the north-northwest, the movement from the National Hurricane Center. As you take another vantage point here, you can see the track right here moving towards the north-northwest, still not yet at the 90-degree longitude line, so we are still watching it, hoping that it starts taking that northerly turn, but right now still not yet. So it's still making a line towards lower Jefferson to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So it is a narrow area that we're watching where the pressures are falling. Again, the flood watch continues and a tornado watch until 2 o'clock in the morning, more than likely extended past that as we are seeing some very strong winds. Now here's the 10 o'clock position. 27.6 north, 89.4 west. Winds of 160 miles per hour. Still a Category 5 hurricane, I should say. Moving towards the north-northwest at 10. The pressure remains at 904 millibars. So it has leveled off, it seems, from the intensity where it peaked at 175 miles per hour a little earlier today. Now here's the latest track, and not too different from what it was earlier. You can see coming on as a 5. They do have it as a 4 around Barataria Bay, so maybe some weakening anticipated now about 7 o'clock in the morning as it moves across the Barataria Bay, Grand Isle, Lower Plaquemines Parish. Now it's going to continue moving through the north, Upper Plaquemines, St. Bernard Parish, Eastern Orleans Parish, and around southeastern St. Tammany Parish, then towards Pearl River County. So according to this track now, still very intense winds, maybe Category 4 strong winds coming across the city and over towards the Northshore area. So we're still looking at a surge coming in around Lower Plaquemines and the Mississippi Gulf Coast, anywhere from 18 to 22, 25 feet. So not much deviation in this track very much. Still the eye wall coming over parts of Orleans Parish, Metro New Orleans, and you can see that margin of error getting smaller and smaller. So it seems like the computer guidance and Hurricane Center is becoming more confident now that it's going to be right along this area coming on shore and affecting southeast Louisiana with a wide swath of winds and also some heavy rainfall. Again, looking at the forecast for the wind field, 7 o'clock in the morning, hurricane force winds across the South Shore over towards Lafourche, Terrebonne Parish, up towards metropolitan New Orleans and southeastern St. Tammany Parish. That's going to continue to spread northward. You can kind of extrapolate this area moving all across the North Shore, Tangipahoa, Washington, Pearl River County, over towards Hancock County as well. But it do have it slowly weakening to a 2 across parts of central Mississippi. So around the Jackson, Mississippi area, still dealing with some very intense winds anticipated by the evening hours. And then the hurricane force winds during the evening moving out of southeast Louisiana by the evening hours. So definitely the first part, the middle part, and into the late afternoon, early evening hours, we'll start to see those hurricane force winds diminish across southeast Louisiana. So again, we're not seeing a big deviation in the track from the National Hurricane Center, and the wind speeds are still very high across the region down towards New Iberia, 18 miles per hour around Slidell, 31 around Kenner. So the winds are still gusting up there, up to 40 now at Armstrong International and 26 around Slidell.
What we're seeing across the metro area, we have thousands of people that either have special needs, can't afford to evacuate, or for some, under some circumstances, decided not to leave. We spoke to one man at Bonneville High School today. That is a evacuation or is a shelter tonight in Jefferson Parish. And what he said was he didn't have a ride, and then decided that because he didn't have a ride, this was the only place he could stay, and he also didn't want to stay in traffic even if he could get a ride. So what we have is dozens of people in Kenner tonight. They are in classrooms, and you're taking a look at some of the pictures. You have kids, you have mothers who are now basically waiting it out, and everybody there just brought what they essentially thought they would need. And the consensus tonight is that this is going to be and will be a trying time for everybody.
It's been hard. It's been hard, and if it does come, what's going to happen? We may not even have nothing to go back to. So, I wasn't here when Camille came or Betsy, but from what my mother said, it was terrible. So, I don't want to see that.
We don't know what's going to happen, but like I said, we've got a lot to be thankful for. The good Lord takes care of us.
And we started out this, well, at least I did today, covering a church, Our Lady of Guadalupe and on North Rampart. And that's what everybody's been telling us, is that the good Lord is going to take care of us. And you find on many occasions, and in many occasions that we've spoken to people and spoken with people today, their faith is what they're relying on tonight. And that's the consensus for most of the people we've encountered, with being in New Orleans and living in the greater metropolitan area of New Orleans. You find that the presence of Catholicism is everywhere. And so tonight everybody is telling us that, we're in God's hands. And there could be something to that because people keep repeating that. And so tonight, I think, as we're waiting for this storm, people are really praying, and they're relying on their faith tonight to carry them through. Seeing what we're seeing now and seeing what the forecast is and what we're about to expect and what we're about to see, tonight, people are just praying.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that the people at Bonneville High School have an idea that this may be where they're going to be for not tonight, not tomorrow night, but perhaps a lot longer?
I think what advantage you guys have being at the anchor desk and seeing all this unfold is that you have multiple vantage points. You see things going on at the Superdome. You see Contraflow. And just seeing all this unfold, I think we have a better context and a better overall picture of what's happening. Everybody else, it seems like, especially at Bonneville High tonight, it's very micro. It's on a very micro level. People are just basically trying to wait it out. And, we had one lady said, when am I going to be able to come home? Obviously, I can't answer that for her. But she thought that the worst of this is over because the evacuation portion is over. But as Carl has told us, as everybody else has told us with all the forecasts, the worst is going to come because what we're talking about is situations where people might not be able to come home.
We have to interrupt. We have to go to Carl Arredondo for an important announcement.
Tornado warning, right, Carl?
That's right, Mike, Thon, and Dennis. We do have a tornado warning now for Orleans, St. Bernard Parish, and this is as of until 11 o'clock. Take a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar, and we're going to show you that we do have this cell here is the one that's possibly producing the tornado or tornado-like winds. That the severe squall is capable of producing a tornado near Waiklowski or 21 miles east of Chalmette, moving towards the west at 50 miles per hour. These thunderstorms are racing on towards the area. So you can see we do have this thunderstorm cell here, and we're watching and moving towards Orleans, St. Bernard Parish, and we're checking on some of the winds in this area. And we'll, let me switch this over a little bit, do a couple of things here. And we're watching that continue to move towards the west very, very fast, 50 miles per hour. That's very fast for a thunderstorm to move, and that's indicating the very high speeds that this thing is traveling. You can see this is indicating winds of 69 miles per hour possibly with this cell. There's an 81 mile per hour wind possibly with this thunderstorm cell as it moves towards Shell Beach and Hopedale. You can see the shear mark is indicating that this could possibly be producing, if not a tornado, tornado-like winds around Shell Beach and Hopedale, moving towards Poydras and Belle Chase. The storm threat will show that we do have the possibility of that there. Let's see what this says. 100 mile per hour winds capable with this thunderstorm cell moving towards Shell Beach and Waiklowski, and that will be moving on towards the metropolitan New Orleans. Let's take your pinpoint storm path and show you the next 10 minutes where that thunderstorm cell will be. 20 minutes from now, Marrero, Belle Chase between just south of Poydras and heading across the areas between Marrero, Belle Chase, and Crown Point. By 30 minutes, they're still moving on towards the west very, very fast at 50 miles per hour. So there may not be much warning. So if you're in Poydras, you're still around in Poydras, Belle Chase, parts of Orleans Parish, you'll want to take shelter immediately because this thunderstorm cell is racing on towards the west at 50 miles per hour. One more time, you can see that this storm is capable of producing winds up to 100 miles per hour. As you see, the shear markers really, really popping up here. That's pretty much a sure sign that there are some damaging winds with this thunderstorm cell between Poydras and Delacroix. And as we get a little bit closer, you can see it's approaching Reggio. So if you're in Reggio right now, you want to take shelter immediately because right in this notch here, there may be a tornado or tornado-like winds coming across parts of St. Bernard Parish and Orleans Parish.